So 27 is a strangely important year for men. I'm just now starting to figure this out. I've been 27 for about 6 months at this point, and it's just weird how things start to change. And I'm not the only one who's observed this. I'll see this in comment sections from a lot of guys. At 27, I started to notice this, or 27, all these different things changed. My career took off. Women started being interested in me. A lot of things start to change, and it's an important shift that occurs, and I want to discuss this with you guys. This might end up being a little bit of a longer video. If you're somebody in your early 20s watching this, it's a good thing for you to be prepared for and start understanding the path that's laid out for you and how you can prepare for that. If you're somebody who's in this phase of life, I think this is going to be an important mindset shift for you, and just understanding how you should approach your life and the phase of life that you're now entering. If you're somebody past this, maybe you missed this opportunity in life, well, that doesn't mean you're too late. You can still change, improve yourself, and get the same benefits that we're going to discuss in this video. Now, the first thing that I'm really noticing about being 27, and again, I'm not the only one to notice this, is this huge mindset shift that needs to occur when you hit this age. So as men, our late teens, early 20s, it's just a slew of rejections from everything. Constant rejection. You're 18 years old, applying for colleges, getting rejected. Girls are rejecting you. You ask a bunch to the prom, they're all rejecting you. You go to college, you're getting rejected for this, rejected for that. You're applying for jobs, you're getting rejected, rejected, rejected. You're trying to get into a bar or a nightclub, you're rejected because you don't have any money and you're just some dude and you don't have girls with you. It's just everything is constant rejection for years. It feels like it's never gonna end. And what happens is, I really started to notice this, is it trains you to constantly expect to get rejected. It's like all you know is rejection. And so just looking into the future, you're like, everything's just going to be rejection. And it creates this weird mindset of expecting failure. And I recently noticed this because my career got to a place where I realized, I was like, holy shit, like, all I got to do is just do a couple things that I've figured out how to do, and I could have a really great year, and I could make a huge step up financially and get up to a whole nother place, like way ahead of where I am right now. And I was like, oh my God, like I've been working for this forever, and it's actually here. It's like, it's hard to really get into your head. It's like I have this voice in my head that keeps telling me, it's like, yeah, trust me, it's not going to work. There's no chance. Something's going to go wrong. You're going to fail again. It's going to be a rejection. And I realized it's because I've spent years having to figure things out and getting rejected constantly because I didn't have the process. I didn't understand business completely. And to the point where it trained me to expect that there's going to be something I can't predict that's going to ruin my day. It's going to ruin my career, like whatever it is. And I realized now, I'm like, that's just a mindset. It's just a belief that got adopted by years of rejection, chronic rejection, feeling like everything in my life was a failure. And I was like, that's just the story of life for most men, is we're just getting rejected left and right. But if you keep doing the work, you get to this point where you figure enough things out that you stop getting rejected. And then it's like you go from constantly eating shit to just eating a little bit less shit, and then it progressively gets better from there. And like, God willing, that's how it's actually going to be. I hope I'm not coming back to you guys in like 6 months like, yep, got rejected again. Like, but I really don't think so, because I can look at it logically and be like, okay, I actually have the skills and I understand business, marketing, sales. I have the platform set up for my real estate career. I have a craft that I can get paid at. I actually do the work. I have the discipline, the intangibles. I'm actually ready to really be successful at this. But it's like a really weird mindset shift. And it's not just with career. One big one is with women. We're getting rejected constantly in our early 20s because we're not the kind of guy who's going to do well with women. That's just how it is as a guy in your early 20s. I mean, I'm somebody who has always been in great shape. I'm 6 feet tall, and truthfully, it was still a brutal dating market for me. Most guys would think I would do better at that, and like, I'm sure I did better than a lot of guys, but it's just tough. At 22 years old, you don't know shit. Even if a woman finds you attractive, she's just like, what is she going to do with you? You know, you barely can afford a place to live if you can. Maybe you're living with your parents. You got a beat up car, no plans for your career. You're trying a bunch of stuff if you're ambitious, but it's just nothing's really come together yet for you. And so it's more rejection there. And then it's like you hit this mid to late 20s phase where you've put some stuff together and there's some distance created between you and all the guys who really aren't doing the work on themselves. And suddenly you start to notice that women are interested in you. And it's like you don't even know how to react to it because you're just expecting them all to reject you for some other guy or whatever the case may be. And it's just weird. It makes you like paranoid. It makes you have this scarcity mindset. The first girl who shows you interest, you're like, oh my God, like this is incredible. And it's the strangest thing to witness this mindset shift that needs to occur when you realize like, okay, I'm not that guy yet, but I'm definitely not some loser anymore. I definitely have some stuff figured out. I've definitely like accomplished some things. I'm in a different position. I'm a different rank at this point. There's just no other really way to describe it. You are distinctly different than a man in his early 20s at this point. And this is obviously predicated on you had to do the work. If you've been sitting around being lazy, you haven't taken care of your physique, you haven't worked on your career, then this stuff I'm describing to you is not going to relate to you. This is for the guys out there who are doing some work. A lot of you who are in your early 20s are probably like me, and you were just constantly wondering, like, what am I doing wrong? Is this ever going to end? I feel like I'm constantly failing despite all my efforts. Like, trust me, guys, it ends eventually. You get to a point where it's like, oh, I put it together now. Holy cow, some stuff's clicking. Like, I've developed, my mindset's shifted. I've created the intangibles. I have the tangible skills. Things are getting a lot better now. This is actually crazy to watch. And if you're in your mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s watching this and you've been doing the work, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll be like, oh yeah, like things definitely feel a lot easier. It feels like I've got my bearings on adult life and I'm more accomplished. Women are more interested in me, more opportunities are open to me. And this leads to the second thing I really wanted to discuss in this video, which is cashing out. What happens to a lot of guys once they've finally gotten through the slog of the early 20s, mid 20s, and they've started putting it together, is they start cashing out. They're like, for the first time in my life, I have a little bit of loose cash that I can spend on something. And so what do? They go get a car that's too expensive. They buy a bunch of clothes. They start going on a ton of dates. This is usually when they start getting interest from some decently attractive women. The first one that really shows them interest, they wife her up. They cash out of the game. And it's another mindset shift that has to happen. It's like, listen, guys, if you spend at this point maybe a decade working on yourself, slaving away, grinding, everyone was basically sitting around waiting on you. Nobody was really lending you a hand except maybe your parents, maybe a mentor occasionally. But like, it's not like all these women were in the trenches with you and stuff like that. And I'm not even mad at them for it. I don't blame them. You know, we don't sit around waiting for a girl to become attractive. We just find women attractive and go after them. So this isn't a getting mad at women video, but it's just practically speaking, if you think about it, you've put a 10-year run perhaps into improving yourself. I started my self-improvement journey at 20. That's when I figured out I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was in shape at that point, but I wasn't in the shape I'm in today. I didn't have the mentality I have. So, I mean, we're talking 7.5 years of work to get to the point where it's really starting to pay off. And I can see that separation between me and the guys who haven't been doing the work. 7.5 years of grinding, of wondering when it was ever going to end. Why would I cash out now? It doesn't make sense for a number of reasons. Number one, it doesn't make sense because you owe it to yourself to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So just because now you're attractive and suddenly a woman wants to have a child with you and get a house with you and she wants you to be exclusive with her, it's like, sorry, I spent 7.5 years doing this work. Like, I'm not just going to commit to that right now. Like, I'm in the position where I'm the prize, kind of, and I'm not even really the prize yet. I'm the prize on certain levels, but I'm not out here pretending like I'm the greatest thing ever. I've still got a lot of work to do, but it's just that dynamic starting to shift from needing to pursue and chase and feeling like you have nothing to offer to realizing you are of value. And it's just like, now that I'm in this situation, like, sorry, you don't get to show up now at the finish line and just claim me for yourself, you know? Or I'm not just gonna, the moment I finally have some cash, I'm not just gonna blow it on stuff that doesn't make me more money. I'm gonna play this thing smart. But most guys aren't thinking about it like this. They're like, yes, thank God, some money. Now I can finally show my friends that I'm successful. I mean, I dealt with this mindset. It's difficult for me to not fall for it. I was like, okay, I'm going to have a really good year financially here as long as things go as planned and I do the work and all that stuff, which I'm sure I will. I was thinking, maybe I'll go get a new car, right? I drive a 2019 Honda Accord. Nothing wrong with it, but it's like, it's not a flex, right? Nobody's just like, look at him, he's got a Honda Accord, right? There's nothing wrong with the car. But I was like, oh, I could get this truck. And it's like, trucks are big in my area, like a macho kind of thing, right? There's this truck I wanted. And I was like, maybe I could get that in a few months. It's like a $45,000 truck. And I just thought to myself, I was like, you know what? That's actually stupid. That's so dumb. Like, I finally am putting myself in a spot where I have a decent amount of cash, where I'm actually in a position where I can really start growing and making huge strides and getting up to new heights in my life. And I'm just going to cash out on some basic car just to show people, like, look at me, I have a $45,000 truck. That's not even really impressive. Like, who cares? Like, there's tons of people with trucks like that on finance everywhere. It's like, so it's not even impressive. I call this middle class fancy. It's this thing where you're like, you're doing things that impress middle class people, right? It's getting like a BMW 3 Series instead of driving a Toyota, or it's, you know, how everybody's got the Louis Vuitton bags to show off to the middle class people. There's all these things you can do. They're slightly above the middle class average, which is like, your Toyotas and things like that, or like a basic 3-bed house or whatever. And it's they'll get a boat. They'll do these things that they're trying to show off to people who are just kind of living normal lives. And it's this impulse we have because most of us grew up normal, right? Maybe you grew up poor, you grew up in the middle class, whatever the case. You feel this impulse to show these people that you are worth something, that you've done something with your life. And so you want to buy nice cars, nice clothes, like show off to them. And it's a huge mistake that'll get you trapped just at the moment when you're finally in a position where you can really take off. Because cash flow is probably the most valuable thing when it comes to really accelerating your growth. First, I would say is your mindset. If you have the right mentality, you can kind of start from any place on the board and you're going to make some huge strides really quickly. Like if you gave me my mindset I have now and started at 20, I would have been like ultra successful by 22, 23. I have no doubt. But it's the mindset that had to be developed over this time. But the second thing is having the cash flow to invest in yourself. Because then you can invest in, education, coaching, materials, tools, supplies. Like you can get a new computer. That's something I'm gonna get in January because I've been needing one. It's a business expense because I have money coming in from my business. I can invest in more marketing. I can double down on stuff. And so in this situation, rather than cashing out, what you want to do is realize, okay, I put all this work into getting to this position. Now imagine where I could be in 3 years if I just double down again. And so that's how I'm thinking about it. I realized that with my real estate career, realistically, there are some people who make 7 figures a year off real estate as an agent, but it's not really the path I want to take. I don't think it's the kind of profession I want to make 7 figures in because, for one thing, it's location dependent. I have to be in the specific area. And number two, I don't think it's the most effective vehicle to do that with. Real estate's a great business. I tell people this all the time. It's a great business to make 6 figures in. It's a bad business to make 7 figures in my opinion. So the way I look at it is like $200,000 a year, something like that. That's awesome. And a lot of you might think that's great money. I mean, it is good money. I'll be grateful that I've accomplished that much. But I also think that's not where I want to end up at. I don't want to cash out there. So what I'm going to do is work my ass off on the real estate thing, and I'm going to go again. I'm not cashing out. I'm doubling down. I'm going to take the money. I'm going to reinvest it probably into the content that I'm creating here because I see this as the long-term vehicle that can really get me where I want to be, which is, in a position where I have true freedom, location freedom, financial freedom. I can run a business that's making 7, 8 figures a year, and I can really be in this spot where I can live the life that I truly want to live. And it's this moment where about 90, maybe 80, 90% of people aren't even going to put much work in at all. They're going to graduate high school or college. They're going to get their job. They're going to gradually gain weight and just eat like crappy food. And just that's the life most people live. Then that 10 to 20% of people are going to work on themselves. They're going to get to about 27 years old. They're going to get the big promotion. They're going to be making $100,000 a year in their career. They're going to go ahead and cash out at this point. They're going to get some decently attractive woman. And I'm not even complaining about this. If this is the life you want to live, there's nothing wrong with it. You do you. But I just think it's a silly mindset to put all this work in and get to this point and then realize it's like, dude, if you just keep putting in the work, this thing's going to take off like a rocket ship, especially now that you're in a position where you've developed your mind and you have more cash to invest into this thing. So about 10% of people, 10 to 20%, they're going to do the work. They're going to get to this place where they're going to be at a little bit of a higher station in life. They're going to be upper middle class kind of position in life. And they're going to cash out here because they're doing better than all the people around them. Then there's going to be the people at this point, I would say this is max 1% of the population, who are going to say, this isn't enough. I want to see how far I can take this. I don't want to be better than the people in my hometown. I want to be the best. I want to be the best I can be. I want the best of life. I don't want the best of this area or even just like a decent life. I want the absolute best. I want to see what's possible here. And they're going to double down. And this is where you can reach what would really be like a 20-year run, I feel like, for men. And this is something that's super rare. In fact, this is rarer than beautiful women. Like, you very rarely see a guy who really did this, but he's living a completely different reality than most of us can even comprehend. It's the guy who got to that point and doubled down, and he went further, and he kept going, he kept pushing. You get into like 30 years old, and now you're like a multi-millionaire, and you're just crushing it in life. You've got it all dialed in. Your mindset's even sharper. You're still in fantastic shape. You've been taking care of that. This is a very like first man-ish topic, and it's like, I really want to give him credit, honestly, in this video, because this concept, he called it the great male filter. You reach like 30 years old, and it's like there's this huge separation between you and the people who didn't do the work. And I understood it in theory, and now I'm starting to see it in reality. And so I want to give him props for understanding this concept. And I want to tell you guys as well, like, this is kind of what happens. It's like you get to 27, you're creating this gap, but you can double down. And by the time you get to 30, you're just going to be light years ahead of everybody. Because most people reach this point and they're like, okay, I'm good. I've got a decently attractive partner. I've got a Lexus instead of a Toyota. My house cost $800,000 instead of, $400,000. I'm doing well in life. And they'll cash out right there. Most people are going to do that. Then there's going to be the 1% who double down. They go further. They're going to push it as hard as they possibly can. And you're going to get access to a life that most people have never experienced if you do this. And it's the run. I call it the 20-year run at this point, 30 to 50, roughly speaking. It's in that range where you're just ultra successful, you're in shape, and you have options in life. You're in your prime. It's this thing that's, I'm so excited for it now that I think about it. And that's why I'm willing to delay gratification and keep doing the work, because I see what's coming. This is why, for me, I've decided I'm just going to devote the rest of my 20s to doubling down and seeing how far I can take this. I'm not necessarily going to live like a monk. I've kind of been very isolated at a lot of periods in my life where I really was just like focused. I'm not spending any money. I don't even have any money to spend. I just need to get better here and keep growing and pushing myself. I'm not at that point yet, but I'm definitely not at the point where I'm trying to show off at this point. It's like, I don't care what you think of me at 27. Just see me when I'm 30 and imagine where I'm going to be. So I'm doubling back down. I've told myself I'm not getting into a committed relationship until I'm 30. I'll date, but I'm not getting into a committed relationship until I'm 30, because I almost made that mistake. I'm 27, like I mentioned. I almost got into a relationship with this woman who was really interested in me, and I'm just so glad I didn't, because I look and I'm like, God, like, it was like scarcity kicking in, right? Like, I mean, I date women some, but it's like, do I have a ton of options? Well, I'm starting to get to where I have more, and I'm starting to figure that part of life out because I've reached this point in my life. But I still have that old scarcity mindset that needs to get trained out of us, that mindset we were talking about earlier. And it almost got me into a committed relationship that I really wouldn't have wanted to be in. And I realized in that moment, I was like, okay, like, you need to put yourself in a position where you've had so many options and you've made yourself so attractive that you've eradicated all of the scarcity mindset. And you've gotten into this position where you are getting so many women interested in dating you that now you really can look at it objectively and find the right person to be in a relationship with. So I made that rule with myself. No committed relationships until I'm 30. We're just doing the work. We're improving. I'll go on casual dates. I'll have fun. I'm going to go on some vacations, things like that. But I'm keeping my bills very low, reinvesting in myself, pursuing personal growth. I want to see how far I can take this thing. And the last thing I want to touch on here, guys, is doing the work. I've been working relentlessly in my 20s. I have to be honest. I've been getting better, obviously. Like, what I thought was hard work in my early 20s is nothing compared to what I think hard work is now. But I was trying as hard as I could. And I've been committed to this for a very long time, of big goals, going after it. And it's like so frustrating when you're not getting results and it feels like you're doing everything wrong because it's not working. It seems like everybody else is beating you. But it's just, I promise you guys, if you haven't reached this point yet, if you just put in the work, it's really like the gap starts to open up, and it's like all of it was worth it. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is so much better. It was totally worth it. And in looking back, it feels like your early to mid 20s, they're just a blink. You're like, oh yeah, that really was not that big of a deal. And I'm so glad I went through it. I'm so glad I did the work. I'm so glad I was improving myself, pushing forward, doing all these things. I took chances on myself. I moved to Houston, Texas. And I had this big dream. I was going to take my YouTube channel full time at that point. I started a coaching business. It just wasn't successful as I needed it to be. I didn't know enough about business at that point, so I barely made enough to live. I ended up living in my friend's garage for a while, as a lot of you have heard that story before. I wouldn't trade that for anything, though, because of the man I became from doing that. The development. Most guys at that point, they were working in some office job making $45,000 a year, and on the surface they were winning because they had an apartment and a car and a girlfriend or whatever. But like, where are they at in life? Are they really pursuing anything? What's the where are they headed? Take a chance on yourself. Do the work. Sacrifice your 20s for the rest of your life. And the thing is, you don't really end up losing anything, because as a man, it's like, if you take care of your health, you still have it in your 30s. So you don't really lose out on anything. Go look at like most of these guys. Go look at like, I don't know, Andrew Tate. Dude's in fantastic shape at 36. I don't even know. It was Chris Bumstead. He's in his late 20s. Alex Hormozi's in his 30s. I mean, those are just off the top of my head. But like, we know this is a thing. Like, if you just take care of your health in your 30s, you're going to be feeling just as good as you were in your 20s, especially with modern technology and science and understanding of this kind of stuff. It could be into your 40s feeling just as good as you did in your 20s. It's totally worth it. You're going to develop your mindset in your 20s. You're going to develop skill sets. You're going to build the foundation for what can be an incredible life, whereas most people don't have that approach. And at first, it's going to look like they're winning. You're not going to see a gap, but it starts to happen. The separation will occur, and you'll reach this point where you're just like, holy shit, I'm so glad I did the work. I just look around, like, truthfully, I don't even feel like I'm that high up the rankings. If I had to rank myself objectively, I'm like a 6 out of 10 right now. Overall, like across the board, I think by mid-2025, I'll probably be like a 7. Right now, I'm like a 6 out of 10 maybe. So not that crazy high. But when I go around, it's like I might go a week without seeing anybody that's even really like doing it on this level. That's just like the levels that most people are operating at. They're out of shape. They have their mindsets are messed up. They're not pursuing anything in their career. They're lacking in confidence and courage and the intangibles and these kinds of things. They just don't have it going on. And this is not me trying to brag, because like I said, I'm a 6 out of 10. I know there's other people out there who would completely shit on me in the state that I'm in right now, but it's just like, oh, like, okay, if I just keep pushing this thing, the gaps can get further and further, and the work actually does work. And it's like, holy cow, this actually worked. I'm just so stoked about it, guys. So I'm going to stop it there, guys, before I just keep rambling. But when you hit your mid to late 20s, just understand things are really going to change. Everything changes. You need to change your mindset. The world around you is going to respond to you differently as long as you did the work and became that kind of guy. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video.